After 35 years of working 2 jobs, skipping vacations, and eating peanut butter sandwiches for lunch so my kids could have everything they needed, I finally made it to my retirement party. My family was all around me. The music was playing. The room looked beautiful. And I watched my own son poison my drink. I picked up that glass. I looked at him across the room. He smiled at me. And I smiled back. Then I set the glass down. And I waited. Because I had been waiting for this moment for 3 years. Before I go any further, if you're new here, welcome. And if you've been here a while, you already know I don't waste your time. Drop a comment right now and tell me where in the world you're watching this from. I want to see how far this story travels. And if you've ever given everything you had to someone who looked you in the eye and treated it like it meant nothing. This one's going to hit different. Let's go. My name doesn't matter. What matters is what I built. I spent 35 years working in industrial maintenance, the kind of work that gets inside your hands and stays there. Calluses on top of calluses. Back problems by 45. Hearing damage in my left ear from a decade of machinery noise. I didn't complain. That was never my style. I raised 2 boys after their mother passed when they were young. No backup plan. No family nearby. Just me, 2 kids, and a mortgage I was always 3 weeks away from missing. My younger son, he turned out solid. Works in construction management now. Calls me every week. Drove 4 hours to help me move a couch last spring just because I mentioned my back was acting up. My older son, my firstborn, he was always the sharp one. Quick talker. Good looking in that way that made people hand him things before he even asked. Teachers liked him. Bosses liked him. Everyone liked him. Including me. He was also the one I gave the most to. College, I paid every dollar. New truck when he graduated. A down payment on his first house when he got married. I even helped cover the wedding costs when he said things were tight. I didn't hesitate. That's what fathers do. But here's what I didn't know. While I was writing checks and working overtime to cover my own property taxes, my son had been meeting quietly with a lawyer. Not a business lawyer. An estate attorney. 3 years before my retirement party, my firstborn had started building a very quiet, very careful plan. You see, I owned a house. Nothing fancy. But in that neighborhood, after 30 years of sitting on that land and watching the city grow around it, that house had appraised at $820,000. And my son had decided he was not going to share that with his brother. What he didn't know was that I had already figured it out. And I had been building my own plan. Hold on, hit that like button right now if you already see where this is going. And if you think you know what happens next, drop it in the comments. I promise you, you don't have the full picture yet. It started with a phone call I was never supposed to hear. About 14 months before the party, I was at my son's house for the holidays. He didn't know I had come in through the side door. His wife had let me in early because I offered to help set up. And as I walked down the hallway toward the kitchen, I heard his voice. He was in the den. Door mostly closed. On the phone. And he didn't hear me coming. I heard him say. And I've turned these words over in my head every single day since. He's retiring in about a year. After that, no income. It won't be hard to establish diminished capacity at that point. If the paperwork's already filed, the house goes to probate and we control the process. I stood in that hallway. I did not move. I didn't breathe. My son. My firstborn. The boy I taught to ride a bike in a parking lot on a Saturday morning when I had worked a double shift the night before and hadn't slept yet, was on the phone planning how to take everything I had ever worked for. Diminished capacity. That's a legal term. It means he was going to claim I had lost my mind. That I was too old. Too confused. too far gone to make my own decisions. And with paperwork already in place, he could step in legally and take control of my assets. My house. My savings. All of it. I walked back out the way I came. I sat in my truck in the driveway for over an hour. I didn't cry. I'm not built that way. I just sat there. And then I did what I've always done when something needs to get done. I got to work. Over the next 12 months, I did 4 things. 1. I met with an elder law attorney and restructured everything. My house went into a living trust, with my younger son as sole trustee. My firstborn's name was removed from every document I owned. 2. I opened a new bank account my firstborn knew nothing about. Moved my savings quietly. Methodically. The way you move things when you don't want anyone watching. 3. I set up a legal recording device inside my home. Documented every conversation where my firstborn brought up my future needs or what happens to the property. He brought it up more than you'd think. 4. I planned the retirement party. Because I needed to look him in the eye. I needed to sit across from my own son one last time while he still believed he had everything figured out. And I needed to see his face. When he realized he had nothing. The party was at a rented event space downtown. About 45 people. Old co-workers. Neighbors. A few guys from the trade union I had worked with for 2 decades. Family. My firstborn showed up looking like he always looked, put together, confident, completely at ease. He hugged me at the door. Told me I looked great. Laughed loud and shook hands with everyone he passed. And I watched him. I watched every move he made. I danced with my granddaughter. I took pictures with the guys from the shop floor who had signed my retirement card. I ate good food. I was genuinely happy. And then, about an hour in, I saw it. A hand. A small object. The champagne glass set at my place at the table. I was across the room talking to an old supervisor when I caught the movement in my peripheral vision. My firstborn walked to the drink table. He looked left. Looked right. And he dropped something into the champagne glass sitting at my seat. He didn't see me watching. He walked away, clapped someone on the shoulder, and laughed like a man without a single thing on his conscience. I walked to that table. I picked up that glass. I looked directly at him across the room. He caught my eye. Raised his own glass toward me. "Cheers, Dad." I nodded. I smiled. I set the glass down. And I picked up a different one. I had that original glass tested 3 days later. It contained a heavy sedative. The kind that, in a man my age with my blood pressure history, could have caused serious confusion. Memory gaps. A fall. Maybe worse. The kind that, combined with the evidence of forgetfulness he had been quietly collecting for months, would have been the first legal step toward having me declared incompetent. But here's what arrogance does to a plan. It makes you stop watching the other person. Because you've already decided they can't see you. Stay with me right here, because what happens next, at that same party, before a single person walked out that door, is the part nobody expects. If you're locked in, hit that like button. This is the moment the whole thing turns. My younger son. He had driven in from 4 hours away. What my firstborn had never considered, not once in all his planning, was that his brother and I had been talking. Every week, for a year. He thought his younger brother was just the quiet one who stayed out of family business. He didn't know his brother had copies of everything. He didn't know that 3 tables away from him sat my attorney. He didn't know that his own business partner, his longtime friend, was sitting in that room. And he didn't know that 2 people near the back of that space worked for the county's Adult Protective Services office. I had told everyone they were old friends of mine from work. My firstborn had spent a year setting a trap. And I had spent that same year converting it into something else entirely. About 90 minutes into the party, my younger son stood up, tapped his glass, gave a speech about what kind of father I had been. And he meant every word. I could hear it. And then at the very end, he said something that pulled the air right out of the room. He said, "Dad asked me to share something tonight. Because he believes the people who love him deserve the truth. And the people who don't deserve to be seen." He opened a folder. He handed a copy to my firstborn's business partner. And a copy to the two people from Protective Services. And then he looked across the room at his brother. I need you to understand something about that moment. I wasn't enjoying it. I'm a father. I don't care how old your kids get, you never stop being their father. Watching my firstborn's face in that moment was one of the hardest things I've ever done. The charm disappeared. The confidence gone. And what was left underneath all of it was the face of a man who had just realized that the floor he was standing on had never been solid. His business partner stood up immediately, walked outside with one of the Protective Services representatives. Because inside that folder was documentation showing that my son hadn't just been plotting against me. He had been stealing from their shared business account for almost 2 years. His plan had been to use my assets to cover what he had already taken before anyone looked too closely at the books. 2 problems. 1 party. 1 night. He tried to recover. I'll give him that, he tried. He laughed first. That reflex some people have where they try to make the room feel like the whole thing is a misunderstanding. Then he looked at me. And he said, and I've thought about this a lot since. Dad, you don't know what you're doing. I looked at my son. And I said, Son, I know exactly what I'm doing. He left. Walked straight out the front door past 45 people who had watched every second of it. Nobody followed him. Not one person. That was 8 months ago. People ask me, aren't you furious? And the honest answer is, yeah. I was. But it wasn't the hot kind of angry. It was the quiet kind. The kind that sits in your chest and makes you replay every moment you thought you were doing the right thing. I keep thinking about the money I gave him. The time. The way I would have moved mountains for that kid without a second thought. And I wonder, when did I stop teaching him what things were worth? Not the house. Not the money. What things were actually worth. But here's what I am. I'm free. My younger son calls every week without fail. I still own my house. My name. My peace of mind. I wake up every morning and I drink my coffee in a kitchen that no one can take from me. And at night I sleep. Fully. Deeply. Like a man who did the right thing. My firstborn sent a letter about 2 months after the party. Said he was sorry. Said he had been under pressure I didn't understand. Said he wanted to sit down and talk like men. I read it twice. I folded it up. I put it in a drawer in the kitchen. Not because I've closed the door permanently. But because forgiveness is something I'll decide on my own terms. In my own time. I spent 35 years living on other people's timelines. Working their schedules. Funding their futures. Being the foundation under something that should have been built to hold me up too. This chapter of my life belongs to me. Now. Everything I just told you is real. But there's one piece I've held back. The kind that makes you stop scrolling. When my attorney submitted the glass as evidence, the lab results came back with something nobody expected. Yes, there was a sedative in that drink. But there was a second substance too. One my son could not have obtained on his own. Which means he didn't act alone. And the person who helped him was still at that party when my younger son stood up and opened that folder. Was someone who had been in my life for over 20 years. Someone who had sat at my kitchen table. Someone I never, not for one single second, suspected. Is next. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. Because that video drops this week. And I promise you something. You will not see it coming.